for the West, the way they are going to perceive of it is going to be so harsh, that we are crude, but they do not seem to understand how that the sources of our laws differ. So, by and large, all of these things must be consulted when you are making a law. For example, the reason the Sharia law could not have been made a national law because the people have a different culture. The southern people cannot work within the ambits of that law. They cannot faithfully observe the Sharia law. And that's why the law cannot and is not applicable to every or any state in the south. Are you going to tell people not to drink or not to, even though I know that drinking occurs still in the north, but probably it is conditioned. So the constitution, the drafters of the constitution have duly consulted. They have looked at our past experiences. They've looked at our traditions and customs. They've looked at so many things. Marriage, for example, you cannot be talking about the stiff conditions under which marriage occurs in the West, in the US, and in Europe. It's not the way it is here. In fact, for as long as you didn't go to court or church, you are at liberty to marry as many. And what can be forfeited, the way people deliberately manipulate marriages in America and in Europe to just to get the man out of the marriage and get compensated. If you try it here, you've been making a lot of mistakes and you won't get a dime. It doesn't make it doesn't make us unlawful. It means that the sources of our law, our history as a people has never favored that. It's not a woman's world. That so the laws of that uh, side of the other climb is overprotective of the feminine gender. And these consultations definitely must be sought before you start making a constitution. Now, types of constitution. We have different types of constitution. For the purpose of this course, we have 8 types of constitution. We have the written constitution, we have the unwritten constitution, we have the rigid constitution, we have the flexible constitution, we have the international constitution, we have the federal constitution, we have the unitary constitution, and we have the confederal constitution. But um, to be very honest with us, in practice, there are about 2 or 3 types of constitution. Let's even say two. Basically, there are 2 types of constitution: written constitution and the unwritten constitution. Now, you find that all the other types of constitutions that have been mentioned are they are subunits of the major types of constitution, which are the written and the unwritten constitution. For example, one key feature or characteristic of a written constitution is rigidity, just as flexibility is a key feature of an unwritten constitution. And then here we now make them types. So every constitution that is written is also a rigid constitution, and every unwritten constitution is a flexible constitution. So what I'm saying in effect is that in practice, as we go to the larger society, or as it obtains in the larger society, there are fundamentally 2 kinds of constitution. But for the purpose of this course, you are taught 8 types of constitution, and this is so done for your understanding, so you have a better clarity. So, but as you move forward, as you go higher, you may want to understand constitution in 2 core perspectives. So that's yes. Okay. The eight types of constitution, you have the written constitution, you have the unwritten constitution, you have the flexible constitution, you have the rigid constitution, you have the federal constitution, you have the confederal constitution, you have the unitary constitution, and um, you have international constitution. Good. Yes. So I'm not sure that we will be dwelling on. Okay, let me just explain two of these eight types so we can move forward to the next stage. The written constitution is any constitution, any body of principle. As you know already, a constitution is a body of principle that regulates the activities of a government or an organization. Now, the written constitution is a constitution which is written and can be found in a single document. A written constitution is that kind of or that type of constitution whose written which is documented in a single document. It is contained in a single document. The rules, the body of rules that are intended to regulate or control the system are found in a single document. A good example of a written constitution is the Nigerian constitution. Like you can go to the bookshop to get a compendium, a single book that carries the constitution of the land. So once the constitution of a country or of an organization it can be found in one single book, it is called a written constitution. Now the opposite of a written constitution is a flexible constitution. I mean, sorry, unwritten constitution. An unwritten constitution is a constitution which body of principle, which body of principle cannot be found in a single document. They cannot be found in a single document. They are rather found in various files and documents that acts of parliament that were made over a number of years. An unwritten constitution is that constitution that is not codified in a single book or document. And now, a good example of an unwritten constitution is the Constitution of the United Kingdom. The British Constitution is not a written constitution because you cannot find all the laws governing Britain and its four sub countries in a single book. You find them in different categories of files and acts of parliament. So if you need a law on marriage, there's a document for it. You go to the archives to get it, either through a virtual means or physical. So they are there, they exist. So to say unwritten constitution doesn't mean that the constitution is not written in pen, in paper and ink. That's not the meaning. It only means that it has not been collated into a single uh, document. And like I mentioned, a good example of this type of constitution is the constitution of the United Kingdom. You know, and of course, all of these constitutional types have their advantages and disadvantages. They have their disadvantages and advantages. You know, so that's that about and to add a little thing, which is the flexible, like I mentioned, the flexible and the rigid are key features of the written and the unwritten constitution. For example, rigid constitution. A rigid constitution is simply a constitution which procedure for amendment is usually cumbersome or complex. Now, go back to written constitution again. Every written constitution has a procedure. If you check the feature of the written constitution, it has a procedure that is difficult to bring about changes or to effect, amendment. Now we come to define a written constitution as a constitution which amendment procedure is usually cumbersome or complex. So if rigid constitution is a constitution which procedure of amendment is difficult, and when we go under the features of a written constitution, we say it is usually cumbersome to effect amendment. It means that each time you are talking of a written constitution, you are equally or indirectly talking of a rigid constitution. Are we together, class?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so um, that's that. And then, of course, a flexible constitution is a constitution in which the amendment procedure is easy to bring about. And of course, to amend a constitution in Nigeria is difficult than amending a constitution in Britain. Why? Because they operate on written constitution while we operate a written constitution. So that's how it works over there. So these are